Hello, everyone. Hello. I was worried I was speaking to myself there. I'm a little bit unconventional, and I know that we've been sat down for a bit. So if you can we just get up for a minute, all of us? Thank you. Okay, I'm going to be Mr. Motivator now, and we're going to do a few stretches. So if you can, only if you can put your hands up, if you could put your hands down, you could turn your head to the right if you know where your right is, and turn your head to the left if you know where your left is. Put your hands up again and say, hooray! Hooray! Thank you. Sit down. I thought it'd be a good way to start to get people kind of moving. So I'm going to be giving an address, and really, really delighted to be here. I'm going to be speaking about embracing the new opportunities, but I'll start by saying I'm also, in addition to being co-founder of AFBE, an organization I founded alongside my brother, Dr. Nike Folayan, MBE, back in 2007, I am also a technical director at WSP, so forgive me if I'm a bit partial to WSP today. This collage tells you a bit more about my life, some parts of my story. The one on the left, far left, is me as a one-year-old. You see, I don't look any different from when I was one. That's a photo of me as a one-year-old, and even as a young girl, I had a very curious mind, one that wondered how things worked. You see, I'd always wondered how the little people got into the TV box in our living room. And I was later told by my dad that they got there via an aerial, or an antenna, if you like. And those little people were the reasons why, the antenna was required. And that got me thinking about how things work. That got me thinking about all sorts of things, but also, as a child, watching television and films was a great way we bonded as a family. It's something we did. And in particular, I always remember watching Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Who has seen Chitty Chitty Bang Bang? Who hasn't seen Chitty Chitty Bang Bang? You definitely should. It's about an inventor that created a flying car. And frankly, at this point in my life, I'd like to have a flying car because I'd have got here on time. So one of such occasions, we were watching the television, and the TV, we turned it on and it didn't work because someone had been poking the TV circuit boards. And naturally, as the youngest, my siblings were to blame, and as a result, my curiosity continued to grow. So I turned to my dad's Grundig radiogram. Who knows what a radiogram is? I'm just wondering, does anyone know? I'm telling my age. So I turned to my dad's radiogram and the turntable needle, and I and my brother Ollie attempted to fix that when we broke it by using sellotape. And so that is kind of just telling you a bit more about my curiosity and the way that I always was. But this has led me down a path to what I am today and what I do today as a telecommunications engineer. And if anyone needs sellotape, I've got some in my bag if you need to fix anything just now. It eventually brought me into an industry that daily saves lives and transforms communities. An industry that offered me so many opportunities, working on amazing projects across the globe, writing technical blogs, meeting amazing role models, supporting F1, featuring in Kidzania, meeting the Queen and the current King. However, for a long time, I have been aware that the industry did not seem to attract or retain many people who looked like me. There were few role models of color to look up to. So today, I'm really honored to be speaking to a room of esteemed systems engineers, being a recovering systems engineer myself, because back in 2013, I joined the Great Western Electrification Project as an interface manager, escaping a year later to join a newly formed telecoms team as part of WSP. And in fact, at the moment, I'm having flashbacks of my time as a systems engineer, but hopefully I can get through this presentation. So I was thinking about the theme. I was thinking about the theme, embracing the new opportunities. And as an optimist, I thought, what about the challenges? A quote attributable to Winston Churchill states, "The pessimist sees this difficulty in every opportunity. The optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty." So I hope you don't mind that I kind of amended the theme slightly as embracing the challenges and finding the new opportunities. The UKIR published a report called the Tomorrow's Engineering Research Challenges Report. Has anyone seen that report? Has anyone had a read? It's a really good read. It was published in 2020, just about the time that COVID was famous, as I say. Some of the challenges of the UK's engineering sector include achieving net zero and sustainability, faster digital design, greater access and use of data, increasing human resilience, understanding complex systems, harnessing disruptive emerging technologies, underpinning tools and techniques. In that report, Professor Dame Gladden said, "We are living in unprecedented times. It is now more important than ever that we think about the challenges of tomorrow and how research and innovation will allow us to overcome this." So my challenge to us here today is, how are we as a community going to embrace these challenges? And I'm going to be asking a lot of questions throughout my presentation, not because I know the answer to it, but I assume that you know, because you're in a place of power to know the answers to some of this and create the solutions to some of these challenges. In May 2019, the Committee on Climate Change, CCC, published its report outlining the technical feasibility of reaching net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. On 27th June, the UK government enshrined this target into law. This means that we have about 1365 weeks to get there, so not very long. It is the reason that the National Engineering Policy Centre was set up, led by the Royal Academy of Engineering, alongside 42 engineering partners, including NCOSI. So what are the net zero challenges? And how do we find the opportunities? So I've represented this using a sort of roadmap, as you can see, and I have depicted the challenges in red and the opportunities in blue. Highlighting just one of those, for example, the UK Green Building Council figures show that 80% of buildings that will exist in 2050 have already been built. However, most of the efforts are focused on new buildings. How about the challenges around behavioral and societal challenges that impede decarbonisation? How do we find the solutions to enable a better quality of life through systems approach? I think you just talked about the SDGs now, so we are all familiar at this point with the SDGs. These were adopted in 2015 and are intended to be used as a set of interconnected goals and global targets for transforming our world. To my mind, this requires a systems approach across all 17 SDGs. A good example is our weight-based recycling targets in local authorities, offering mixed recycling collections to maximize the amount of waste collected for recycling, but reducing the quality and the value of materials recovered due to contamination, with whole loads being rejected at processing sites. So again, this requires a systems approach. So how do we detangle the complexities? And how do we begin thinking of the whole as a sum of its parts? Are there opportunities to better educate on systems engineering and systems thinking for all engineering disciplines? Or shall we carry on with a bolt-on approach that we currently see on most projects? As someone, as I said, as someone that has been a systems engineer for a minute, I often find it quite interesting how projects only think of systems engineering sometimes when they run into situations of challenge. But how do we educate all engineering disciplines to ensure that this doesn't carry on? There's a real opportunity here to raise awareness on these issues, and I think that you're all best placed to do that. So transitioning from an unsustainable world to a sustainable one, I think the answer to that is transformation. A paper by N. Vouvelet et al., titled Systems Thinking is a Paradigm Shift for Sustainable Transformation states, refocusing on experiences, identities, relationships, and values that matter to people can be a policy objectives for change, one that facilitates a paradigm shift, ultimately resulting in sustainability. It also talks about openness, transparency, diversity and inclusion, for example, which have a potential to transform government, businesses, strengthen people's trust in institutions, encourage greater public participation in decision-making. These are all enabling factors for sustainability transformations. These all require systems approach and systems thinking for understanding the conditions that generate and propagate sustainability challenges. So in view of all of this, I've outlined 3 important keys that I think are required for transformation. Now, these keys are based on the lessons I've learned from AFBE. And I will start by describing what our challenge was for context, then to share 3 important keys that I believed helped us in our transformation experience. So back in 2007, at a time when inclusion wasn't a hot topic, or as I normally say, at a time when diversity wasn't so sexy, I and Dr. Nike Folayan, MBE, embarked on a transformational journey that created AFBE-UK. Having experienced the engineering industry, and actually the society as a whole, had an inclusion challenge. Those are some of the articles that were in the papers. You will see that they're August 2007, when the Prime Minister of the UK said black culture was responsible for crime, at which point I thought, damn, I'm an engineer, I should have been a gangster. That's clearly my culture, and I've missed something there. And we thought we would set up something, one, to change the stereotype of what it means to be black in the UK, and to show our younger people that you can be an engineer and be as cool as I am, we are, yeah. So we set out with purpose to do something to tackle this challenge. We set up AFBE to promote high achievements in engineering and education amongst people from underrepresented groups in engineering. The first key that I'd like to share with you that we use to achieve this transformation is what I've called a systems mindset. So we needed a systems mindset, by which I mean we needed to understand the challenge holistically. Root causes, in fact, at points we had bow tie diagrams to illustrate the barriers. We saw the opportunities this could bring, and we did this in spite of the many, many challenges and barriers we faced. Now the organization has grown into a membership of over 2,500 engineers across the UK, with 80 corporations, some of who are here today, and over 20,000 beneficiaries. we worked on our understanding of the landscape, developing a flow chart or a life cycle, if you like, of what would be required to become an engineer from a diverse background. And in 2015, as good engineers did, we published our findings in a conference paper called The Proceedings of Educating Enterprising Engineers and Scientists in London. And that's available now if you want to look it up. What we noted was the overrepresentation of ethnic minority young people interested in engineering, with engineering entrants from engineering backgrounds studying engineering. So engineering students at university being X%. Can anyone guess what that percentage is? The percentage of ethnic minority engineering undergrads. Can anyone guess? 0.1. Okay. Any other guesses? 20. Okay. That's very different. Okay. Anyone else? 5. What did you say? 4%. Okay. Really good guesses, but believe it or not, that percentage is much higher than you'd believe. That percentage is 33%. So engineering undergraduates from ethnic minority backgrounds are 33%. But we're only 9% in the industry. The Hamilton report in 2021 shows that Black engineering graduates are less likely to progress into engineering roles at 35% in comparison to their white counterparts as 57%. And we wanted to find what those challenges were. And this flow chart or life cycle, as you would say, demonstrated some of the challenges, showed us where the issues were, showed us that of the top 100 engineering companies in the UK, there was only 2.3% representation on company boards of people from ethnic minoritized groups. Showed us that at the time there were less than we have now, but we only have in the UK 160 professors who are Black. Showed us the challenges around academia and showed us the challenges around the gaps between completing a degree and getting us a job. And that's what we set out to tackle. There's a saying, you can only be what you can see. So for us, it was about creating the right tools, processes, and approaches to removing these barriers. So that's my second key. Looking at the challenge from an attraction, retention, and progression pathway. We had, our first program was called Making Engineering Hot. We did want to call it Making Engineering Sexy, but for the sake of going into schools and explaining to a teacher that we wanted to make engineering sexy to the kids, we thought we'd change it to Making Engineering Hot. And that program focuses on children from underrepresented backgrounds, not just from an ethnicity perspective, but a social mobility perspective. We found that there was a strong correlation between social mobility and ethnicity, and we wanted to tackle both so that everyone would feel included. I often say you cannot be inclusive by being exclusive. So wherever it is we went, we took engineers from all ethnicities to demonstrate that we were one community. Then we set out on our transition program, which looked at that issue around entering into the workforce. We started a program called Transition, which included things like mock assessment centers, mock interviews, to engage young people at university level, to bring them into these weird and wonderful environments where we're so accustomed to and we're so used to, so that when they had the actual interviews, they wouldn't be intimidated by the buildings they'd never been to because they didn't have the network to access those buildings before they graduated. We created that program so that they knew that there was a community that really wanted them to come into the industry, and they just needed to make that link into. We also started to look at what we call our Real Projects Initiative, which is our program that we look at technical topics. So, for example, I presented one on digital railway, which is a topic that I'm passionate about. And it opened up a world to students that this is something that they could potentially work in. So those technical sessions, we run over 50 technical sessions a year where we talk about technical topics, because we wanted to make this about technical excellence and not just around the inclusion challenge. We have a program called Transcend, because as I said, only 2.3% of board members of engineering companies in the UK are people of colour. So we created Transcend, one to help our membership who were aspiring to those positions to understand the skills and talent they needed, and to help companies come along with them on that journey as well. So tools. We created these tools which directly addressed each stage of the life cycle using feedback loops to improve initiatives. On understanding the drivers for success, we engaged with engineering corporations and institutions and developed an index called the Engineering Ethnicity Index to measure progress within organizations who support the index to drive real progress amongst our corporate members. So that was the second key. The third key was understanding human dynamics. Human dynamics is described as actions and interactions of personnel, interpersonal, social, contextual factors, and the effects on behavioral outcomes. Humans, as we know, are complex. And the key to enabling transformation is understanding how different humans experience the world. This can help define boundaries, overcome bias, engage beneficiaries, and increase capacity. I have a short video here on Noah. I'm not talking about Noah the sailor. I am talking about Noah, an actual person. I'll tell you the story about Noah to illustrate what transformation may look like. This is the story of Noah Arthur, a systems engineer. I met Noah at 15 at Walworth Academy in Walworth when AFBE delivered a Making Engineering Hot outreach school program. At the time, Noah was not necessarily sure of what he wanted to do as a career, but he had an interest in engineering. Now, Noah attended University of Leicester quite unaware of the challenges that may occur in terms of securing a job post-graduation. Research by the Royal Academy of Engineering shows that he was, as a black male, only 48% likely to get a job within engineering 12 months post-graduation. So when he graduated, he applied for over 100 jobs, 100 vacancies, and wasn't getting anywhere. Then he remembered an organization that had come to his school and looked up AFBE online. He contacted AFBE and got assigned a mentor who worked with him on his CV and interviewing skills. He attended a few AFBE transition events, and finally, after much support, landed a job at WSP. I had no idea who Noah was until he volunteered as a graduate WSP engineer to support our Careers Making Engineering Hot Schools outreach program, which was taking place actually at WSP. After joining to support our young, enthusiastic attendees, Noah walks up to me and said, "Nikki, I just realized you don't recognize me." He then told the story of how I'd attended his school to talk about engineering. Now he was giving back to the next generation, working at the time as a graduate systems engineer at WSP. So at this point, I'd like to play Noah's video if I can get it to work.
Hi, my name is Noah, and I'm a systems assurance engineer at WSP. As a kid, my parents bought me this jumbo Lego set with like like 1,000 different pieces in it. And that was my first experience of actually putting things together, learning how things work. I think that's where my first interest in these things came from. I didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to do as a young kid. And then a group called AFBE came into my sixth form to talk about science and technology and kind of just talk about engineering to the young kids. When speaking with senior engineers about what they do, and they're telling me, oh, on a day-to-day basis, they're solving problems, they're designing things, they're making bridges, that's when I kind of said, oh, that is exactly what I want to do. I like this. This makes perfect sense for me. To become an engineer, you need some level of qualification. It was either that or an apprenticeship. Going through university made sense for me because I'm quite academic. There's so many different routes into engineering that you might not want to go through the university route, you could go through an apprenticeship. There's so many different engineers out there. There's one for you out there, and if you dream it, you could do it.
Okay. So before I end, I'd like to just ask if you remember what the keys were, and if we could just, who remembers what key one was? Key one for transformation. Just making sure you were listening. Wonderful, systems mindset. Key number 2? The right tools. Wonderful. And key number 3? Fantastic, fantastic. So yeah, thank you. You were listening. Can I go on? Okay, so finally, J.K. Rowling said, we do not need magic to transform our world. We carry all the power we need inside ourselves already. Now, that would sound out there, but I'm in a room full of amazing systems engineers. And if you don't think you're amazing, someone thinks you are. So I'd like to leave you with this challenge. What is your vision for transformation that enables new opportunities? What keys do you have that you haven't used yet? And how will you leave the planet a better place than you found it? Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you very much. I hope you found that inspiring, I certainly did. Any willing to take any questions?
Yes, any questions?
Anybody got any questions for Nikki? It's bound to be the first one. Oh, come on. Come on, Duncan.
Hi, Nikki. I'm Duncan Kemp from UK MOD. Firstly, that was a really great presentation, and I particularly found Noah's story to be really kind of inspirational because it's kind of that whole cyclic circle piece, and to see that coming back in is really, really positive. If I can take you back to 2007,
Yes.
what did you hope to achieve, and how much have you done looking back at that? And, you know, have you massively exceeded, or did you have that vision, do you know what, I want to change the UK?
No, thank you. That's an amazing question. So 2007 was a very interesting year. I'd joined industry. I was in academia, and I joined industry expecting, you know, I'm a wonderful person. Everyone will like me. And then I'd realized that, no, actually, I'm a wonderful person, but there are lots of demons out there, right? So I had to feel like I could come into work and feel included. So that was partly what was going on. So in the workplace, I was on a floor of about 100 people, the only black female engineer on this floor. And constantly feeling that I had to do something extra to fit in, even though no one was particularly saying I had to. But then the news was constantly, I lived in Croydon at the time, and the news was constantly talking about gang culture and all that sort of thing. And so imagine the backdrop of you already feeling like you don't belong, and then getting that on the news and being worried that you're going to come into work on the Monday and someone's going to say, oh, did you see the news? And the awkwardness of all of that. So one of the things that, and I had a really bad experience in my workplace because I had a line manager that wasn't particularly supportive. And my brother Ollie at the time was having similar sorts of experiences. And at the time we thought, you know, surely there are people from similar backgrounds that we can reach out to at the top of organizations. And we searched, and we searched, and we searched. And that was the moment we thought, hang on, we can't change the past, but we can change the future. So what's the percent, how many of us are actually in the industry? And we couldn't find the data. And the only data that we were able to find showed that there was about 4%, but it was kind of, it wasn't like actual data. It was guesses based on different people. And we thought, hang on, surely there's something that we can do. So rather than complaining, we can do something. And that's when we started to talk to a few of our friends. We sent a letter to about 100 people, and everyone was like, yeah, this is a fantastic idea. I want to get involved. And the first meeting, it was actually at Ollie's flat, and there was 2 of us, myself, Ollie, and 3 other people, of the 100 people that said, yes, yes, this is fantastic. And at that point, we thought, should we just not bother? But we thought, no, we needed to do something to change it. At the moment, we're 9% in the industry. And that number could be much higher. And so for us, we want that the representation, the enthusiasm that our young people have to study engineering, and that 33% leads to a conversion of more of us in the industry. And that's why we continue to create programs. But not just entering into the industry. For us, it's about the progression path. There was a point that most engineers of color would join the industry, and at a point they'd think, well, I'm not going to be CEO, I'm not going to be in this top position, so I'll just go on contract. Now, is it 35? Is it P35 has changed that a bit, but that was it. So for us, the aspiration is that the number of us that are in the industry continues to grow. We feel a sense of belonging to stay in the organizations that we're in so that we can grow in those spaces and make those leadership opportunities. And that's slowly changing, but it's slow and it's painful. So, yeah.
Hi, Nikki. Thank you so much for that excellent presentation. I think all of us could take something away from it. I have a two-part question, but I'll ask them in separate parts so that it's not too much to remember. The first part is, what are you finding from the data for why it is the case that there is such a lower representation with black people and minorities? I'm a DJ and producer, and I had an interview with a lady who did her master's thesis on trying to understand why over time the representation has dropped so much from a lot of the electronic genres actually starting off, especially with jungle music being a very high representation, and over the years dropping. So what have you got from the data with regards to that?
Thank you, that's an excellent question. So what we found is there are 3 aspects. They're the aspects around networks. Most engineering companies have what we call placements, internships, and so on. And so people enter the industry from that point, so that when they graduate, on their CV, you can already see they have the culture down, they've had opportunities to work in different environments. They would come into a work environment and easily fit in. Most of the young people from underrepresented groups don't have these networks, so that's one of the challenges. Nuffield Centre, University of Oxford, did research as well that found that if you have a Nigerian-sounding or Pakistani-sounding name, they sent out 300 CVs, exactly the same CVs, and all they did was change the names. And they found that if you have a Nigerian or Pakistani-sounding name, they had to send 80% more applications. So there are challenges around bias there that we can't run away from. There is also role models. You can't be what you cannot see. So lots of people that want to be in these positions, want to join the industry, look into the industry. And I've had experiences where young people are quite shocked that I'm an engineer in this day and age. You'd think, well, gosh. So there are challenges around role models as well. But there is also a challenge around the industry. We are, as engineering, we're a bit of a snobbish industry. We like ourselves. We don't kind of put ourselves out there. So an engineering organization will be in a local community, but they will only engage with certain types of schools. How about those schools that don't have Ofsted needs, have Ofsted reports needs improving? How about those schools that have large number of kids on free school meals? Those metrics which we should be looking at to engage people that would actually enjoy working in our profession, we're not doing. So I think it's a loss for us as a community that we are quite specific. So those are the things that we found based on the data that is happening a lot of.
Okay, awesome, thank you. And I just remembered John asked me to introduce myself. I'm Renee King from PPI, Project Performance International. Thank you, that's a very, very good answer. And I think that you're right about many of those things. And the second question I wanted to ask is, what data do you see at the moment for why diversity is so important, so we can make the business case to our leaders? So for me, I have ADHD, obviously being of color too, and for me, I kind of intuitively sense that diversity in is diversity out, that the more variety we have in inputs, the more interesting possibilities we can come up with. So what data do you see with regards to that relationship?
No, thank you for that. There's a McKinsey report. McKinsey did a report back in, I think it was in 2018, 2017, that showed that businesses that employ more gender diverse are 25% more profitable. Businesses that are ethnically diverse have a 36% more profitable. There's also research by the Royal Academy of Engineering that shows that there's an 86% increase in creativity and innovation dependent on how inclusive a workforce is. So these are all things that are out there for people to read, and I'm quite happy to provide references on all this data. But the fact that we have, I really believe that diversity increases creativity and innovation, because when you have diversity of people, you have diversity of thoughts, you have diversity of experiences, and that means they all see things differently. And because they all see things differently, you have better creativity and innovation, and you'll have people thinking outside of the box, in the box, on the side of the box, over the box. And that's what you need for a society that is inclusive and is able to meet not just siloed problems, which is partly one of the challenges that we have that was shown on sustainability, the issue around siloed implementation. If you have people from a wider range, you'll have more creativity and you can provide better solutions for everybody.
Okay. I've got a couple of quick ones on Slido, if that's okay?
Yes.
So, because we paid for the technology, we might as well use the bloody thing. So, we got two, hopefully very quick answers, then we'll be straight over to you, if that's okay. And one from Luke, who wishes to remain surname anonymous. Where did the 20% BA, ME engineering graduates go, if not into engineering roles, and why did they go to those industries? And then one from Paul Davis, similar, of the 30% BA, ME uni students in STEM subjects, many are overseas students who then return abroad. What could we do to retain them in the UK?
Actually, that 33% are UK domiciled students. So that percentage does not include any overseas students.
Yeah.
If we just recruited home diverse students, we could actually kind of start to shift things. So that's the first question. That's the second question. Yeah. The first question was, where do they go? We started to look at data around where a lot of ethnically diverse people go. One of the things that we found is that after applying for, there's researchers show that if you've been applying for an industry for over 6 months, you're less likely to work in that industry. And there's research by EngineeringUK to show that 6 months post-graduation, only 48.6% of people, specifically of black origin, enter into the profession. So what tends to happen is people think, maybe I need more qualifications. So they go and have a high degree. And if you ever have had a look at CVs, you'll find that people from ethnically diverse backgrounds are more likely to have the higher degrees in addition to the first degrees, because a lot of the times they think, well, you know, maybe if I had a bit more qualifications. Now, what tends to happen if they don't get the jobs in those spaces, and it's only a little percentage of them that go into investment banking and so on, is that they join, they try to create their own industries. So you'll have people having what we call SMEs, some successfully, not some, and some going into retail. But that research is still ongoing as well. So yeah, unfortunately, it's not that they're going somewhere else and they're profiting. It would be nice if we felt that they were profiting in other sectors of society. It is just the case that they're not entering the profession because of the challenges that they currently have.
Okay, excellent. We've got time for one more quick question.
Hi, I'm Deepa Ganesh from Kinetic. Thank you for your great presentation. From my experience, I'm nearly 35 years I've been in industry. So I finished my degree in 1990, early 1991. I was one and only a female engineer. I never had that thought. I've been working, even now, most of them are male colleagues. But I seen the younger generation, they started to ask questions, how do you feel women in engineering? So I'm a Brunel University, Southampton, a couple of universities, some STEM, women in engineering support, and women, MathWorks, some women in techs. So I started to think and supporting the community. So one question from me, what's one thing you would like to see the change in engineering for women in 2024, especially in COSE UK? You could see we have very minor minority here. But so what is your suggestions?
No, thank you. I always tell the story when we started AFBE. I'd walk into a room and talking about AFBE was like bad breath. Straight away, people would disappear because they were uncomfortable with it. And so I'd talk about being a woman in engineering, and if I was lucky, I'd get one or two people listen. So for me, I remember back in 2016, the Institution of Engineering Technology had an event called 9% is Not Enough, because at the time there were only 9% of women working in engineering. We're now 16.9%. So for me, the ambition is to continue to grow that number, because as we know, that apart from the selfish thing around profitability, it is actually good ethic to have 50% of the society included in what we're doing. But also, it's the retention for me. It's about retaining women. I've often seen a lot of women join the profession really enthusiastically, but feeling really let down by a profession that doesn't support their aspirations and walking away. I've seen them go and retrain as accountants, and no one likes accountants. So no one should be retraining as one. So I really think that the real work is around retention of women, and the real work is around progression of those women, providing the tools, providing the flexibility that will allow them excel. Because at the moment, it is still shockingly low. I mean, if back in 2017 we were 9% and now we're 16%, it's because some people are leaving.
Thank you very much, Nikki. Excellent as usual.